All right, welcome back to the Hoop Life Productions podcast. I'm AJ, here with my guy Chance.
It's good, fellas.
We're back with a little shorter video here. We're just going to do a little look over on what's going on in the playoffs and what we expect. We are down to the conference finals in both conferences. So,
yeah, we're recording this on the 25th of June. Hawks and Bucks game 2 is tonight, so I just wanted to go over like everything that's happened in the playoffs. I know
I have a rant to go on first. I've been thinking about it for a while. So, there's this culture right now going on in the NBA community, whether it's Twitter or Instagram, that I absolutely hate. And don't get me wrong, when a player doesn't play, Ben Simmons in the last round is the newest example. He deserves blame, and he deserves to be criticized for how he played. But we have this constant, every year there's a new guy that like these NBA meme accounts clown after something happens. And
it's been more than just Ben Simmons.
Yeah, Paul George was last year, and there's always a guy, and it's funny to an extent, but we reach a point where it's just really corny to me because then it's like 50% of NBA fans are like basing their opinions on a player off what they see from memes on the internet. And I think people just like to follow trends. And they see, oh, Ben Simmons is getting hate. And now Ben Simmons is awful player and whatever this or that. And Paul George was the last thing now.
Porzingis.
Don't get me wrong. Porzingis had an awful series. And he's got some work to do on his game. But like... These guys are NBA players and they're stars. And
they're human beings too.
Yeah. And I don't want to sound sensitive, like we can't criticize these guys because you can, but it comes to a point where you have to look at it from like a basketball perspective. Where okay, Ben Simmons played awfully, needs to get better, and then you move on. Like I don't really get. I don't know. That's all I have to really say about that.
Yeah, I like a lot of what you were saying.
I've been thinking about it for a while because Paul George was the biggest thing last year, and I've hated it all year because now it's going to happen again because we saw what happened with Paul George the other night when he missed those 2 free throws. And, you know, it just gives these creators... I don't even want to shout out a certain page because I don't want to give them light for this. I don't want them to be recognized. There's a certain page on Instagram who has, like, millions of followers. They're a big page. And after the Philadelphia series... Like 3 days after, I went to their page, and 15 of their last 17 posts were Ben Simmons memes. It's like, do you have any other content? Like, do you actually care about basketball, or do you just care about the biggest story of who's doing bad and who to clown on? But we can move on from that. We'll get into the playoffs here, unless you have anything else to say.
I just wanted to start like going over maybe series by series, and like first round included. Kind of see your thoughts, like what you thought was going to happen going in, and then what actually happened. So let's start with the Western Conference. So Utah played Memphis. They win 4-1 as expected. We won't talk about that a whole lot. All I can say is Utah with Donovan Mitchell in that series pretty much swept them. Yeah. Memphis grabbed game 1 when Donovan Mitchell wasn't playing, and I mean, their young talent looked really good, but obviously Utah was the better team.
Yeah, I mean, it was just an example of a fully rested 1 seed versus an 8 seed. And, I mean, Utah went into it ready, and they were the superior team on both sides of the ball. And they did that without Mike Conley, didn't they? 4-1. I don't think he played in that series.
He might have.
I know he didn't play in, like, most of the next one. But, so yeah, that's all for that.
And then we had the best series of the first round with Clippers, Mavericks. And I mean, neither team really deserved to lose, but
went 7. Luka Doncic showed that he's like the future of this league. Unreal.
And we also realized that he needs help.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If they want to win a championship.
I don't necessarily agree with the coaching change. I think Carlisle is a fantastic coach. But obviously, if things weren't working out between him and Luka, you got to give your young guy a new coach. And the Clippers just showed in this series this was their first example of you can't count them out because
Game 3
Clippers are just different, and then they step it up. It's like they play better when they're down 0-2, and I don't know what that is.
I don't think it's a coincidence, honestly.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. We'll get to their series going on now, what they'll do without the guy that they had in this first round, which was Kawhi Leonard, who was a monster in like the last 3 games. So that was a big part. And then we can go on here to Denver and Portland. I think this surprised a lot of people. It didn't really surprise me because Jokic is the MVP for a reason.
Betting-wise, Portland was actually favored in this series.
It's just crazy. And it was because of the Jamal Murray not being there. But a guy like Michael Porter Jr., he stepped up big. Jokic was Jokic. And I think Portland we're at the point where like Portland has to. They got to revamp it. They got to do something big. You know?
Either blow it up or get some different personnel in there to play with Dame, because what they have, they peaked in the conference finals, which is fine. Like ask Wizards fans, like how easy it is to get to the conference finals, or ask Clippers fans before this year how easy it is. So
I think Ben Simmons is perfect for them. Yeah, I think that.
You like a CJ
and maybe a pick, or CJ Ben and something for Ben, maybe straight up.
I've kind of thought about this, and I was thinking like a CJ and Robert Covington for George Hill and Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I would do that if it was both teams. Yeah, for sure. And then going on to probably the biggest shocker of the first round, for the first time since first time ever in his career, and the first time since I'm 21, by the way, for those listening. The last time LeBron didn't make it out the first round, I think I was like 5 years old, 6 years old. And other than the year he didn't make it, and that was the year he didn't make it too. This was his first round loss. And shout out to Phoenix, because they just, obviously a big part of this was Anthony Davis going down, but they capitalized on it as perfect as they could. Like Jay Crowder and DeAndre and were menaces in the paint, and Devin Booker is just that kid. Like he's just a bucket.
So this was a pretty up and down series. Phoenix grabs game 1 and makes us realize, oh, these guys are legit. Like they're ready for the big time. And then the Lakers convincingly win the next 2 games, and Anthony Davis is absolutely manhandling them, and that's kind of how I thought it would go, because there was like this matchup advantage. And then obviously Anthony Davis goes down. LeBron's at about 60% maybe, and obviously with those guys not at 100, they virtually have no shot at going anywhere. Obviously
the real turning point was the injury, but when I think of the turning point of the series, I go back to that fadeaway that LeBron had on Crowder when he was like posting him up, and like Drummond was on the side like mocking LeBron, like doing what he was doing. And ever since then, I guess Phoenix took that personal, and they just went on a run. Do you want to go over to the East here now?
Yep. All right. And so we had Philly-Washington. This was easily the most boring series ever. We knew what it was going to be like. I predicted a 4-1 Philly win, and that's what happened. Like, it seems like Russ always has that one game in the playoffs where he goes off, and then obviously Beal did good too. So they got their win, and honestly for them, like, them making the playoffs was pretty much above expectation, I would say.
Yep, not much more to say other than that. Next series, I think surprised a lot of people. Not really me, even though I think I picked New York. I wasn't really.
I picked the Hawks. I wish we would have bet money on that.
I wasn't like super confident. I think a lot of people are way too confident in the Knicks here, but Trae Young just went out there and showed that he was the distance between Trae Young and Julius Randle is like
huge now.
And I think he came in that series and he embraced being a villain. You know, he was in the shushing the garden and all of that, and you'd love to see it. I think that series, even though he only went 5 games, that's going to be like in like 5-10 years. But remember when Trae Young was in the garden and it was just messing them up.
So I picked the Hawks to win the series, but I thought it was going to be like 6 or 7. Yeah, I didn't see a gentleman's sweep, and honestly, they should have sweeped them. Like, but my thinking with them is like they just had so many more guys that could get you a bucket, and I just didn't think New York would be able to keep up. And then Randall was atrocious pretty much the entire series, and that's when you kind of knew, like, if Derrick Rose is your go-to guy in 2021, you have no shot. Like
RJ Barrett kind of was exposed for only being able to drive left, and it just didn't turn out.
So I mean, it was obviously a fantastic season for the Knicks, but like, they still have a lot of work to do.
They got a good future, it looks like, but
still quite a bit of work to do.
To the next series, speaking of sweeps.
This was disappointing, honestly, in terms of competitiveness.
So it was disappointing in terms of competitiveness, but I'm one of those people I love seeing, like, guys that are supposed to dominate go out and dominate, and that's what Giannis did in the series. Like, they just, on both ends, they ran Miami off the court 4 games in a row. And I don't know if it was fatigue.
Besides game 1, like, the series wasn't close.
Yeah.
And do you think if Miami somehow grabs game 1, it's a different series?
No.
No?
They were so different in, like, skill. Like, they were so far apart that it's hard to say Miami had any ability to... and I want to give shout-out...
What was Miami lacking this year? Like, what happened?
I don't know if they're lacking anything.
They couldn't score.
I don't want to say they're a product of the bubble, because they have some... Jimmy Butler is a star in this league. Not a superstar. He's a star in this league. Bam's a young star. They got some pieces. But I think they had a little bit of fatigue for one, and injuries.
They kind of just looked like they didn't want to be there. Like,
yeah,
they'd been playing a lot of basketball the last 9 months, and they were kind of just ready for vacation.
The rest of these teams, like Milwaukee, they had a lot more time off after the bubble. They were in a more natural environment to play basketball than they were last year, and it helped them a lot. And
Milwaukee had that little chip on their shoulder to come back and take Miami out this time.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on here, we got Brooklyn and Boston. This is similar to the Philly and Washington series. Brooklyn got a game because, like you said, Russell Westbrook game. They had a Jason Tatum game, which I think you predicted as well. He had like 50 points or whatever it was.
Yeah. I did really good on the East side. I picked it perfectly.
Other than that, Brooklyn Nets are clearly a superior team, and Boston has some stuff to work on, and they didn't have Jaylen Brown either, so that's really all that goes there.
Yep.
So then we got Utah and the Clippers. You want to start there?
Yeah, this was also kind of a crazy series because Utah goes and takes 2-0 pretty convincingly, and then what was it, game 5 or 6, Kawhi goes out, and it's like, oh man, Utah, it's kind of all aligning for them, and then
Paul George,
Donovan Mitchell gets banged up, and Conley's a little banged up, and Clippers were able to take advantage.
All year, Utah mastered like the three, like they were smacking threes all year.
Yeah, getting open threes.
Open threes, and we were saying all year, like, this is awesome, and we're not doubting them, but what happens when they get closed out in the playoffs, and are these shots going to go in? And they did the first 2 games, and then towards the end of the series, shots weren't falling. Mitchell wasn't able to move the way he's naturally able to. Gobert got exposed, man. Like, we're reaching the point.
You know how to beat
the traditional center. You go small. The traditional center died in this series, like officially, because the shout out to King of the Fourth Quarter here. One thing Kenny was talking about was the biggest part of Gobert's defensive impact is just his intimidation, because they know he's so good down there, so they don't drive to the hole. But they found out small ball with guys like Terrence Mann driving to the hole, they can still finish on Gobert. And when the team gets confidence, when they're just decide they're not afraid of Gobert, it's not a lot he can do to impact the game defensively.
And then offensively, he doesn't really offer much.
Gives you 12, 13.
So at that point, he's just kind of a liability.
Yeah.
And Utah just gave him $40 million a year.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's tough. I'm not gonna lie.
Moving on to Denver and Phoenix. To me, this was just an example that Phoenix is not Portland. And they're like, okay, you don't have Murray, we're going to take advantage of that.
I mean, honestly, Denver and Portland, neither one of those were like a second-round team this year. Like, I think Dallas was easily better than both of those teams, and the Lakers, honestly. I think they would have beaten them, but sometimes that's how the seeding goes. And Phoenix took advantage of a Denver team that just didn't quite have enough this year.
Yep.
And they showed superiority.
Mm-hmm.
And then second round in the East, probably the biggest upset of the playoffs so far. Atlanta takes out Philly. Trae Young continues to be an absolute villain.
Yeah, just.
And Philly was kind of exposed offensively.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Ben Simmons earlier in my rant. Obviously, he didn't play well. And
I want to talk about Tobias Harris, though.
Yeah.
That man got the max contract, and he was
And this isn't
awful.
the first time. I mean, this happened last year, too, right? And he just... I don't know.
From Philly, I'm shopping Simmons and Harris because I don't think you can win a championship with those guys. And especially those big of contracts and not being able to show up in big games.
I think Ben Simmons has some soul-searching and some stuff in his mind he's got to work on. I think it's all mental. And obviously, he needs to work on his shooting. He needs to work on his game.
Yeah.
But the fact that he won't take those shots, obviously, it was really shown when he passed up that layup and gave it to Thibault. That was really was the breaking point, I think. And so yeah, Atlanta comes back and wins in 7. Not really comes back, but they win in 7. Putting them in the Eastern Conference Finals against Milwaukee because Milwaukee in the last series, I think probably best series of the playoffs, right?
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with that.
Either them or Clippers in Dallas. Go 7 games and goes
overtime in Game 7.
Kevin Durant, enormous foot away from being Brooklyn's series.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving being out, James Harden basically not being out. I mean, he played, but he wasn't really impactful.
He wasn't himself.
So it was Kevin Durant versus the Bucks, and great series. I want to shout out to Giannis because in this playoff so far, he's been that guy that we want.
He hasn't gotten exposed.
Even in the next series we'll talk about here, we'll go to the Clippers, actually. Clippers and Phoenix. Phoenix is up 2-1 because, of course, the Clippers don't lose Game 3s, and they won last night.
Yeah. So what are we talking about? The series going on right now?
Yeah, Clippers-Phoenix.
Yeah. So I texted you last night that Phoenix was going to win the championship. I just think they're the most well-rounded team, but obviously they got beat pretty good last night by the Clippers, making it 2-1. But if Phoenix can somehow grab Game 3, which I think they will because CP3 and Booker were terrible last night, and I think they're the type of players that bounce back in big situations. So I think they're going to bounce back and win this series in 5 or 6 games. Okay. And then on the other side, I still think Milwaukee wins, but Atlanta's going to make it a really tough series for them. And Coach Bud, at the same time, is also going to make it way tougher than it should be.
Series for them, yeah. I think Nate McMillan and wow, there's a lot of great coaches here left, and then there's Budenholzer.
Yeah.
We got Nate McMillan, Monty Williams, Tyronn Lue. Those are 3 black coaches. Shout out to them. That's cool.
You want to know another crazy thing, like player-wise?
Yeah.
When you look at these 4 teams, either Paul George is going to get his first ring.
Trae Young.
CP3 is going to get his first ring. Yeah, Trae Young or Giannis is going to get his first ring. Like one of those 4 scenarios is going to happen.
That's crazy.
And I honestly, at one point,
I don't care. I didn't
think any of those guys would get a ring anytime soon.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
That's like the cool storyline of this playoffs, even though it's been crazy.
So my prediction here is Phoenix in 6, and I'm gonna go Atlanta in 7. So Phoenix versus Atlanta.
So you think Atlanta goes into Milwaukee?
Yes.
And wins Game 7.
I think Trae Young is the perfect guy to do that.
And Coach Bud is out the door.
Yeah, I think Coach Bud is out the door if they win the next 13 championships. But
I don't know about that.
But no. But yeah. So that's really it. Thank you guys for listening. Anything else to say?
I wanted to ask you one more thing.
Okay.
What are some teams in each conference that missed the playoffs this year that you think will make some noise next year?
In each conference?
Yeah. Just give me however many you want. So I got the standings up right here.
Okay.
In the East,
I think
I'm seeing Toronto and Indiana as being teams that make the playoffs next year. And in the West, I think the Warriors for sure with Clay back. Pray to God that he doesn't get hurt again.
Yeah, the Warriors are the big one for sure.
And who else in the West? Maybe the Pelicans, if they can somehow put a good coach in there, different personnel around Zion, they could do it.
Yeah. I think Charlotte in the East could make some noise.
Oh, yeah, Charlotte too. Yeah, it's both conferences are going to be very...
Maybe Chicago with another year in the off-season with Levine and Vucevic.
Yeah, and a little bit of cap space too.
Yeah.
You saw my... we're going to have off-season previews coming up pretty soon, so we'll talk about that more. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Drop a like if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.